A quiet town in the small town of Alcàsser, near Valencia, Spain, life was quiet and predictable. Everyone knew each other, and the community was tight-knit. It was November 13th, 1992, and three teenage girls, Miriam Garcia, Toñi Gomez, and Desirée Hernandez, were excited for a night out. There was a school dance in the nearby town of Picassent, and the girls had planned to attend together. Best friends, they had been looking forward to this evening for weeks. The girls decided to hitchhike to the dance, as they had done many times before. In Alcàsser, this wasn't unusual. People often relied on the kindness of strangers or neighbors to get around. That evening, they stood by the roadside, laughing and chatting as they waited for a ride. A car eventually stopped, and they got in, never suspecting the danger that lay ahead. As the hours passed, their parents grew concerned. When they checked with friends, it was clear the girls had never arrived at the dance. Panic quickly set in, and the police were notified. A search began, with volunteers combing through nearby areas and posters of the girls' faces appearing everywhere. Days passed without any leads, and the community, once so full of life, was now gripped by fear and uncertainty. The case soon gained national attention. The media picked up the story, and the girls' families appeared on television, tearfully pleading for any information that could lead to their daughter's safe return. Despite the widespread coverage, there were no credible sightings, no phone calls, and no clues. The investigation seemed to stall, leaving everyone in Alcàsser devastated and desperate for answers. The mystery deepened, and what had been a joyful night out became a painful memory for the town. Weeks turned into months, and hope began to fade. The disappearance of Miriam, Toñi, and Desirée was an unsolved puzzle that haunted their families and friends. As Christmas came and went, the once vibrant community struggled to come to terms with the loss, holding vigils and praying for a miracle. But the silence was deafening, and the lack of progress only intensified their fears. It wasn't until January 1993 that a new lead would emerge, bringing the case back into the spotlight and setting off a series of events that would change Alcàsser and Spain forever. A gruesome discovery on January 27, 1993, over 2 months after the disappearance of Miriam, Toñi, and Desirée, a grim discovery was made. Two beekeepers hiking through the rugged hills of La Romana, near Valencia, stumbled upon a horrifying sight: a shallow grave partially concealed by branches and leaves. Inside, they found the decomposing bodies of the three missing girls. The news sent shockwaves throughout Spain, and the peaceful town of Alcàsser was thrust back into the national spotlight, this time with a painful conclusion. The police quickly secured the area, and forensic experts began their work. As the remains were carefully unearthed, it became clear that the girls had suffered unimaginable violence. The autopsies revealed evidence of severe torture, rape, and brutal killings. Details of the injuries were harrowing, painting a picture of prolonged suffering. It was clear that whoever had committed this crime had intended to inflict as much pain as possible. The brutality of the crime stunned the nation, and the media covered every aspect of the investigation, often sensationalizing the graphic details. The case became a national obsession, with continuous news coverage, televised debates, and rampant speculation. Fear and outrage spread across Spain as people demanded answers and justice for the innocent lives that had been so cruelly taken. The police investigation led to two primary suspects, Miguel Ricart and Antonio Anglés, both known to law enforcement due to their criminal backgrounds. A tip-off helped the authorities locate Ricart, who was arrested shortly after the discovery of the bodies. Under interrogation, Ricart confessed to being involved in the abductions and murders, but he insisted that Anglés was the mastermind behind the crimes, forcing him to participate. According to Ricart, the girls were picked up on the night of November 13th and taken to an abandoned house where they endured a night of torture before being killed. However, Antonio Anglés managed to evade capture. Reports suggested that he fled, leading to a massive manhunt across Spain and neighboring countries. There were rumors that he might have escaped to Portugal or even stowed away on a ship to Brazil, but none of these leads led to his capture. Despite international efforts, he remained elusive, slipping through the grasp of the authorities. The gruesome discovery marked a turning point in the case. While the arrest of Ricart provided some answers, the public and the victims' families were left with even more questions, and the shadow of Antonio Angles loomed large over the investigation, the hunt for the truth. The arrest of Miguel Ricart brought a chilling confession, but it also exposed a case riddled with inconsistencies. Ricart admitted to participating in the abduction, rape, and murder of Miriam, Toñi, and Desirée, but he insisted that he was forced into it by Antonio Angles, whom he described as the true orchestrator of the horrific crimes. According to Ricart, the girls were picked up on November 13, 1992, taken to an abandoned house, and tortured for hours before being killed. Yet, Ricart's accounts kept changing, raising doubts about the full extent of his involvement and whether he was telling the whole truth. Meanwhile, Antonio Angles had managed to evade capture, and his escape became one of the most sensational manhunts in Spanish history. The police issued a nationwide alert, and soon the search extended internationally. Reports suggested that Angles had fled to Portugal and might have boarded a ship bound for Brazil. Despite extensive searches, surveillance, and cooperation with international authorities, he was never found. His disappearance fueled countless rumors and theories, with some believing he had help from powerful connections, while others suspected he might have died while trying to escape. The investigation into the Alcàsser murders faced harsh criticism. The police were accused of mishandling key evidence, and the chaotic media frenzy that surrounded the case led to the release of sensitive information, which compromised the investigation. The forensic evidence was inconclusive in many aspects, and mistakes made during the collection and analysis raised serious questions about the competence of law enforcement. Families of the victims, already devastated by the loss, felt betrayed by the authorities. Apparent lack of efficiency and transparency. During Ricart's trial, the courtroom became a stage for Spain's grief and outrage. Forensic experts and witnesses detailed the horrific suffering endured by the girls, while Ricart continued to blame Angles for orchestrating everything. In 1997, Ricart was found guilty and sentenced to 170 years in prison. Yet many felt the trial had not provided real closure. Antonio Angles, the main suspect, was still missing, and the shifting testimonies left doubts about how much of the truth had actually been uncovered. The case also gave rise to dark theories about a larger conspiracy involving influential individuals, a secret network, or a cover-up. Although these rumors were never substantiated, they added to the atmosphere of confusion and suspicion. For the families of Miriam, Toñi, and Desirée, justice felt incomplete. Without the capture of Antonio Angles, the question remained, would the full story of what happened to the girls ever come to light? Shadows and legacy years after the gruesome discovery, the Alcàsser murders continued to haunt Spain, casting a dark shadow over the nation. While Miguel Ricart was convicted and imprisoned, the escape of Antonio Angles left a glaring void in the pursuit of justice. Despite an international manhunt and countless leads, Angles was never found, and his disappearance became one of Spain's greatest unsolved mysteries. Rumors persisted that he might have fled to South America, but there was never any definitive proof, leaving the case unresolved. In 2013, Miguel Ricart was released from prison after serving 21 years due to changes in Spanish law that reduced his sentence. His early release reignited national outrage, with people questioning how someone involved in such horrific crimes could walk free. The families of Miriam, Toñi, and Desirée were devastated, feeling that the system had failed them once again. Protests erupted, demanding stronger laws and justice for the victims, but there was little that could be done to reverse the decision. The Alcàsser murders exposed deep flaws within Spain's law enforcement and legal systems. There were numerous reports of mishandled evidence, procedural errors, and delays during the investigation. The role of the media was also heavily scrutinized. Sensationalist coverage had turned the case into a spectacle, with graphic reenactments and invasive reporting that many believed exploited the victims' suffering for ratings. The families were particularly hurt by how their daughters' memories were used, feeling that the tragedy was being sensationalized rather than respected. The unsolved element of the case also gave rise to numerous conspiracy theories. Some speculated that there were powerful figures involved, suggesting a cover-up to protect influential people. Others believed that Anglès had been assisted in his escape, hinting at a network that extended beyond the reach of law enforcement. While none of these theories were ever proven, they added layers of intrigue and suspicion, turning the case into a symbol of injustice. Today, the Alcàsser murders remain one of Spain's most infamous and unsettling criminal cases. For the families, the pain endures. They continue to honor the memories of Miriam, Toñi, and Desirée, advocating for greater protection for young people and pushing for the case to remain open. The story of the three friends who went out for a night of fun but never came back is remembered as a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the darkness that can exist even in the most ordinary of places. The unresolved mystery of Antonio Anglès looms over the case, a lingering reminder that justice is still incomplete. Despite the passage of time, the calls for truth have not faded, and the families hold on to hope that one day the full story of what happened on that November night in 1992 will finally be revealed.